am married to a person who's very direct. We were polar opposites. So I was very emotional. There was a lot of frustration in the middle. I remember that feeling in my body when I finally felt safe. Wow, this doesn't feel like someone's attacking me. I can actually just take the feedback and see where it's relevant. And now I'm at a place where I can actually see like the golden nugget and I get excited.
Hello, everybody. This is Robbie Spier Miller, the host of the Habit of Possibility podcast. And today we are going to be speaking with Kristyn Livermore. Kristyn has a really wonderful story of how she discovered how to interact with life and use her mind in ways that helps her have more possibilities in her life. So she's going to share her story with us today. So welcome, Kristyn.
Awesome. Thanks for having me. I'm really excited to share my story and what I've been through to get to here.
Yeah, thanks for coming. Yeah. So start by telling us a little bit about when you first started learning here. What drove you to want to do this? What were you struggling with? What were you looking for? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, it was interesting because I remember meeting you for the first time, and I don't really remember actually knowing what I was struggling with, or actually logically knowing what I was struggling with. I was in a lot of debate in myself. I had played a victim for a really, really long time and got away with a lot. And you were really the first person to be like, oh no, that's not going to work here. And I guess in hindsight, if I look back, I was looking for someone to keep me accountable and to actually have a safe environment or a safe place for me to have the freedom to grow, because I wasn't finding that anywhere else. And I felt like you were like my blessing in disguise that I met. And I didn't like you at first because I really didn't want to hear it. But when I look back, like I've made all of these changes because of that accountability and that freedom and that feeling safe in that place. And I've proved to myself I can do so much. Like I've even shocked myself a lot of the time. I'm like, really, you're doing this? Good for you. So it's been amazing.
Yeah. Awesome. Years ago, I had this client who was a young adult at the time, and she told me how when she was growing up, she was in a divorced household. So her parents lived in two different households with two different sets of rules, and her mother was very permissive and really anything goes. And her father was very strict. And eventually, first she wanted to live with the mom because she saw she could do whatever she wanted, but eventually she chose on purpose to move in with the dad because she saw that she needed that, which was a very impressive thing for a teenager to realize. But I think that that's the realization you had from coming here.
Yeah, so you were like my dad with the rules. Yeah, because both my parents, they were so concerned about, their own stuff. That the only person I could trust was myself. And I had this alternate world in my head, and it wasn't attached to reality. It was so far from reality. And that's where my frustration came from. I got lonely. It snowballed from there, and it really didn't change. It just continued to get worse until I found here.
Mm-hmm. And what are some examples of how it was impacting you?
Oh, wow. So many examples. So, I used to look for like the bad boy when I was younger because I was looking for that adventure and that excitement. And I remember when I first met my husband, I was like, you're really not that fun. But similar to you, like I saw something that I needed in my husband, and I truly believe that my husband gives me that every day. He gives me that groundingness where I didn't have growing up, that accountability, that push to stay moving forward. Mm-hmm. Some other examples is, I used to be very rebellious because I was looking for attention. I was looking for, someone to pay attention to me so I didn't feel so lonely. And then I also, when I had my children, I put on 100 pounds. And I was just recently looking back at the pictures actually and didn't even recognize myself. Like it was like I ate myself. I was inside myself. And we talk about anchors all the time about how you can go right back there and feel all those feelings of how lonely it was and how sad and insecure, and I had no options. I felt like I was totally stuck.
Yeah, and it can be very confusing because you don't really know any other way and you don't really know what's missing. You just know it's not the way you want it to be.
Yeah, so it's like that frustration where you have no options, but you don't like this.
Yes. And, it's so interesting, Kristyn, because this is exactly why I started learning this and why I'm so inspired to help other people because I needed this as well in my own way, right? I know you had your version of this.
Yeah.
I had my version of needing to catch up in certain ways on things I'd missed growing up. And you can have the most loving, well-meaning parents, and this can happen. And in many ways, I did have very loving, well-meaning parents who were not divorced. They were together. They're still together. But there were things that were missing. And I think it's a very common experience. And sometimes if it's a more extreme situation, it can be obvious what's missing, right? If somebody goes through trauma or things like that, it can be very clear where this confusion or lack of taking care of ourselves can come from. But when things are more subtle, sometimes we just wonder, is it us, right? Is there something wrong with us, or are we just stuck? So that's really what inspires me to do this work here, is to help people. I look at it like if there's the sun and there are clouds in front of the sun, that we help those clouds drift away and the sun can shine through. And I think in your situation, it's very much been a case of that.
Yes, very, very true. And that's what I love about being here is I thought I was the only person in the world who was going through this. And like you just used that example, there's so many different variations of this, but it's the same pattern or strategy that we're going through. And that's what I love. It doesn't feel so attached to me anymore. It's just like putting something on the table and being like, hey, do you want to keep that? Is that working for you? Or do you want to see other options?
Right. Yeah. And that discovery, learning how to interact with learning that way is so important. And I know when I started to learn this, I had this sense of shame if I made a mistake or if I was given feedback because I felt this pressure to present a certain way. And I think that you had something similar where it was a huge deal to think that somebody was judging you. And sometimes you were imagining it was happening, even when it was just feedback to help you. You were imagining it was judgment, which is probably why you didn't like me when you first met me.
Yes,
right.
Totally. Yeah. And that was one of my biggest first growths being here, is being able to just get comfortable with feedback. And I remember that feeling in my body when I finally felt like safe to get feedback. And I was like, wow, this doesn't feel like someone's attacking me. I can actually just like take the feedback and see where it's relevant. And now I'm at a place where I can actually see like the golden nugget, and I get excited because, in every piece of feedback, even I'm married to a person who's very direct and puts it on the table very easily. And we were polar opposites. So I was very emotional and he was very direct. So, there was a lot of frustration in the middle. And now with that growth in myself and being able to take the feedback, I can see that everything he says has a golden nugget in it.
So you're able to stay curious about where's the golden nugget. Whereas before you were just reacting because you felt judged and you wanted to debate it or argue or get back at the person.
Yeah. I remember like trying to defend my position or like fighting back. And yeah, it was a lot of that.
Yeah. Good. And so tell me more about like what else have you accomplished, or how are your relationships different since you've started changing this?
It's funny because as I was kind of like checking in with myself to see how far things have come, we've talked about this too. And the wonderful thing about you, Robbie, is that you always plant a seed, which is most useful for the person sitting in front of you, which is really a beautiful thing because we don't ever take the time to look at it ourselves. So it's been able to teach me how far I've come and give myself a little bit of kudos because I wasn't very good at that before. So some of the biggest changes I've made is that I've started a business on my own, which in my head, that sounded wonderful. Even when I was a little kid, I remember being like, I'm going to be the CEO of, whatever big company. And I wanted to start companies and I wasn't putting things into action. So I wasn't actually doing anything. And now like I own a company. I'm the director of West End Hypnosis. And I got out of teaching, which was a really safe, comfortable place. So my purpose and my mission is more clear. I take action much more clearly, and I have a plan to where I want to be. And I have, like Goldilocks and the Three Bears. You have those little crumbs.
Yeah.
I put crumbs out, and I visually look and put those crumbs to where I want to be. And I actually feel comfortable doing it. I feel safe and secure doing it. So whether that's in my relationship, and sometimes, and I know you've taught me this a lot, is meeting the person where they're at. Where before I used to be like, come with me. I used to be very frustrated. And now I'm much more settled in myself, where I can meet my husband or even my kids. Everyone's going through their own version or own frustrations. And I'm also realizing that it's never perfect. Right. It's just the reality of life. We're living from emotional state to emotional state, and really focusing on an outcome. So I've been able to start a business. My relationships have gotten way better. I've been able to even choose the people that I want to be around me. Because before I used to be such a people pleaser that I would just be like, yeah, I just want to be liked. So the more, the better.
Right. So you weren't really paying attention to, is this a good person to be influencing my life? Is there really a connection here? Because all your awareness was focused on being liked. So you couldn't even see what was actually happening.
Yes. So when you talk about that sun and that clouds, that really, really hits me hard, because that's exactly my clients, so many clouds. And now I fully see the sun. And, there's some days that I can't always see the sun as clearly, but I have a routine. And we've talked about this a couple times, or a lot of times, about having and really cherishing that structure and that frame. And I think before I used to not give myself the space to do it. Didn't feel worthy enough. But now I truly feel like I have a ground a base, and I'm allowed to exist.
You're allowed. Yes. We give you permission.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it feels like that inside.
Yeah. And I think what you're describing is that, sure, we all have ups and downs, right? And we have good days and bad days. All of us do. But now you know how to follow those breadcrumbs to make it better, no matter what's going on. And before something wouldn't be going well, and you would actually double down on the negative stuff and sabotage it even more. So it was like going down a rabbit hole of negative stuff.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. Oh yeah. I would make it 10 times worse. Where now I don't even I can't even imagine what that would look like in my life now.
Yeah. Yeah. And when you were doing that, it was really for taking care of yourself. Your subconscious mind from an early age believed that if you defend yourself, that you're protecting yourself. And you did survive, literally. So there was this belief in your subconscious that was a good thing. And so you're seeing, there are better ways to do this, because you don't want to just survive. You want to make the most of your life. You want to build your dreams.
Yeah, it's short. It goes by quickly. Even having 2 young kids, I've noticed the power of taking care of myself and actually living my own life to the fullest. There's that old saying, don't say as I...
Don't do as I say, do as I say, don't do as I do.
Yes, right? That I felt like that was really ingrained in me as a kid, because my parents never took care of themselves.
Right.
They were so focused on the frustration and the anger. So I'm seeing a huge difference as I take care of myself, that my kids have more freedom to explore and to make mistakes and to see what they want to do and have fun.
Yeah. Yeah, awesome. And kids absorb all this little sponges. So now that you're functioning in this new way, they're eating and sleeping and breathing this as they're growing up. And so to them, it's just going to become the way it is, which is wonderful to be able to pass that on.
Yeah. And I remember saying in one of the first courses that I took with you, and I've taken a lot of courses because I love to learn and always find that there's something new to learn. And every time I take a course, but I remember one of the first courses I took with you, I'd said, what does it look like if I sign my kids up for this? And you're like, Kristyn, you live like this and you won't need to sign your kids up.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah. And I find I get a lot of clients like that who'll come in and being blaming their husbands and being it's all his fault. And I'm like, you know what? If you come and take care of yourself, it's like a domino effect.
For sure. It is. It is. And it may not be perfect. My husband and I joke that if our kids need help as they grow up, they can always come and learn this. Not for me, because they're my kids, but they can learn what we do here. And once you're an adult, it's your responsibility to change it. Right. So, and that can be a wonderful, important growing experience. Like, I wish I knew this stuff when I was a teenager. That would have made the future of my life completely different.
Me too.
Yeah.
Or even if it was in schools, like, and that's where all of this stuff that we've all been through is it taken me so much further now. It's like, okay, so what does it look like when it's in schools? What does it look like when it's, just like a doctor or a lawyer and it's in that job criteria as well?
Right. Yeah. Well, I'm not sure if it will ever happen, but Kristyn, you are a teacher and you have connections to the school board. So if you can get them to teach this in the schools, that would be fabulous.
Mm-hmm.
It would really change people's lives in amazing ways. So who knows, maybe that's in your future.
Yes. I was actually talking to someone this morning about a business deal. And like, I lost my dad pretty young when I was in high school. He was in a motorcycle accident when I was 17. And my uncle stepped in as my dad, just as a male influence in my life. And I remember him always telling me that a business deal is when two people are somewhat satisfied. Mm. It's not one or the other. It's when two people are walking away satisfied. And that's what I hope for, the school board can see that there's this need in this as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Well, we can look forward to that.
I'll have to put some more breadcrumbs down.
Yeah. Yeah. You need breadcrumbs in that direction because that's why we do what we do. Right. Like for me, because I've seen how much it's helped me, I just want to help as many people as possible discover what's possible for them with this. Because it's really brutal. Like when I was stuck, I would write in my journal, I should do this and I should do that. And why can't I be like this person or that person? I just get pissed at myself and also feel the shame. And when that happens, it's very hard to learn or change because we're automatically in defensive mode. Mm-hmm. So one of the first things a lot of our students and clients need to discover, and it doesn't matter why they're coming for help, it could be weight loss or stop smoking or stress management or whatever they're coming for help with, or it could be building a business. It's being really at peace with the process of learning, just like you described that it's not a judgment of you. It's simply like, oh, interesting. How else could we do this? What might work better? So it becomes outcome focused. Mm-hmm. But for both you and me early on, our outcome was survival, and we thought of survival as self-protection. And so the instinct was either to fight or flee or fawn, right? Like when you were trying to get liked, you were fawning over other people, right? And yes. You've had times where you've been a fighter, as have I, right? Mm-hmm. And then there's the freeze times where you just don't know what to do. Mm-hmm. Right? Yeah. And I bet the eating had a lot to do with that as well.
Yes. Yeah, totally. And I even remember it was either you or Scott that had mentioned to me that like, I'm so outcome focused, but I didn't know how to get there. Mm-hmm. So like, and you've really taught me how to put those breadcrumbs down and how to attach to my outcome. Right. Where like before it was like, yeah, it's somewhere over there. The outcome's over there somewhere.
Yeah. Well, and it's such a common problem. I talk to so many business owners and many of whom I help build their businesses. And often they have this amazing vision of what they want to build, but they don't know how to attach the actions they're taking on an everyday basis and the way they're interacting with the world to the vision. So a big part of what we do is help people learn how to do that, because there's nothing more frustrating than having this beautiful vision of what you want to create and then being disappointed that you can't do it. Mm-hmm. And that it's not that you can't do it, it's just learning how to do it. So, we want to attach dreams to actions and be confident doing that. You can't possibly build a business and have everything go perfectly. It does not happen. And I was talking to one of our students the other day, and she was looking to rent a space. She's just starting her hypnosis clinic. So she was looking around at spaces, and she sent me some info about a space she wanted to rent, and it looked great. But in the meantime, somebody else rented it. And she said, I took that as a sign that maybe this isn't the direction I want to go. And I was like, if you really want to do this, you're going to keep going and you'll find a space, right? So we don't want to look for signs in things that don't go our way. We want to decide what's going to happen. And we might need to come at it from a lot of angles. But the people who really achieve things are willing to stay with that through the ups and downs. And, I think a lot of people who believe in, the universe is telling me something can take that way too far, because there's a place for intuition, right? There is a place for that. But I think sometimes we look for signs when really we're fearful and we're using the sign as an excuse to indulge the fear.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I can see so many examples in my own life when I've indulged that fear. And then I haven't actually, seen all the other things that are telling me to go that way still.
Yeah.
I've blocked it out, right? Like I've had those blockers on.
For sure.
In my relationship or even with my kids. I'm like, kids, they can be a dice roll sometimes. And if I focus on all of the things that aren't going well, I miss all the other stuff.
That's right. Yeah. And also you're focused on the things that aren't going well, which will create more of them.
Yes.
So my experience with raising my kids is that I focus on where I see them going. So for example, my son, when he was younger, he wouldn't eat with a fork and knife, he'd eat with a fork and a finger. And I saw that, I was like, okay, he's got to learn how to eat with a fork and knife, because I'm picturing him, at a business dinner or on a date or something, using his fork and finger. And so, every morning we would have breakfast together and I'd keep saying, use your knife. And we would joke about it and he would blow it off and make fun of me. But eventually he was using his knife. And I just knew that would happen. And I think that being able to stay with it, this took years. This one little thing did take years. One of the things I learned from being a parent is that has to be okay. And you still have to keep your eye on where that child is going and just expect them to do it. You don't know exactly when or how, but you've got to keep on it and trust eventually they'll get there. Even if it's years and years later, even if you never see it, you might never see them get it, but trust that they'll get it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I love that you continuously remind us of that, is like, focus on where it's going to go. Because that really, it gives you that North Star or that light when you're, sometimes in those tough times, especially with parenthood.
That's right. And, in terms of your subconscious mind, if you say to somebody, don't trip over that log, they're more likely to trip on that log, right?
Yes.
So if you're focused on the things you don't want about your kids or yourself, you're going to create more of those things. Mm-hmm. So we really want to be readjusting, right? So we can acknowledge what is happening right now, but we need to look to where we need to go. So for example, with weight loss, we have our clients really create a powerful image of themselves being slim and fit. And we have them take the actions now, even though they're still overweight. We have them take the actions now that match that vision of how they want things to be. And by doing that, they get there. Mm-hmm. And that's the path to making change.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's so interesting. I love it.
Yeah. Yeah, awesome. All right. Are there other things that you think people would benefit from knowing about your experience?
Oh, so many things. I think one of the biggest things is trusting the path, like trusting and sticking with it. Because I remember when I first came here, I would distract myself or be like, nope, this is too uncomfortable, I'm out. I'd run. And it wasn't useful for me. And once I actually noticed that I could breathe through a situation, or I could ride the wave and the wave actually got smaller, or I could actually feel safer in the wave, knowing that like if I surrendered, I'd be okay. Mm-hmm. And we've talked about snowboarding before, but it's really, really common with skiing or snowboarding. If you actually tense up when you fall, you hurt yourself more. But if you just like let go and fall, you tend to hurt yourself less. So it's interesting. The fall is much smoother. So that's been a huge growth for me, is trusting the process and staying with the uncomfortable to know that there's light at the other side.
Mm-hmm. And the first skill if you ski or snowboard is knowing how to get up if you fall.
Yes.
That's an important skill here too, right?
Yes.
Because before, when you used to fall, you would just think, I'm stuck here forever, right? And you'd be pissed about it.
Yes.
Instead of finding a way or learning how to get up. And so I think metaphorically that's really what a lot of us need to learn how to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I love, and it's been so important for me to have a mentor, to have you in my life, because without you, I would just kind of be coasting in the dark. And we often say, like, you know, the person's inside the bottle and you're reading the label, but it's so much more. It's giving you that outside perspective of someone who's been there, done it, who can see the bigger picture and help you frame something, and in genuine love and curiosity. So it's just having you. And I always joke with you that I'm never ever leaving you. And you know, so who knew to come that I started by not liking you, and I really needed you in my life. So and that's where it's picking yourself back up and knowing that it's just a moment in time and it continues on.
Yeah. And Kristyn, of all the people who've been here as students, I would say at the beginning, you were the one who tested the boundaries the most, right? Like, because, you know, part of what we do here is we do meet with each student or client to see if it's a good fit. And part of that is seeing, hey, is this person willing to take feedback and follow instructions, or are they going to try to find a way around it? And you were really, you were pissed that I wouldn't let you find a way around it. You were like, what's going on here? What's the big deal?
Yeah.
So you were really good at that.
And I couldn't see beyond that moment. In that moment, I could not see beyond that moment. And that's how I lived at that point. And I'm so happy to say that's not how I live anymore. Like, I have so much more freedom. And I thought then I had freedom, which I didn't really.
Well, you had the junk food kind of freedom at that time, right? So it can be illusionary in terms of in the moment being free to, you know, blow things off or go eat whatever you want, whatever junk food you want to eat, or do whatever you feel like doing, but it's not actually satisfying over time. So you were kind of, you know, it's kind of like being in high school and the parents go away for the weekend and the kid invites everybody over for a party.
I was definitely that person.
Yeah, literally and figuratively. Yes.
Yeah. And I'm noticing how many layers there are of this. So I'm even noticing that pattern, you know, in my own weight loss journey. Like, I still am on this weight loss journey to have a healthier lifestyle. And it's not a one and done. It's really intertwining it into my whole life. And every time I do the weight loss program myself, I'm learning something new. And I'm excited, and I'm seeing that pattern pop up in different areas. And I'm like, oh, Kristyn.
Yeah, there are layers of discovery, and we think we've accomplished one area, and then something else pops up in our lives. And so we really embrace that. It's like making friends with that process as a lifestyle. Yeah. But because we can make our lives better and more rewarding, and we have more choices. So it's really worth it to stay on that path.
Yes, 100. It's very worth it.
Yeah. Because what happens, you know, if somebody is eating junk food all the time and sitting on the couch and, you know, watching movies all the time, their body is going to start screaming at them that it's hurting them. And if they don't mind that, right? So they're not minding authority, the authority of nature. When that happens, they're going to keep hurting themselves. Right. And you were in that kind of situation when I met you, and you were super good in your head at making up a story about why you should stay on the couch and keep eating junk food and watching movies. And I mean that metaphorically. Yeah. Right? Whatever you're doing in your life.
Yeah.
You were really digging your heels in with the right to do that, and defending it, and not realizing how much you were hurting yourself.
Yeah, I didn't realize how much pain I was in. And you know, even being on this podcast has given me permission to go back and really see how far I've come, and really see how much further I can go too, but also just being proud in the moment. Yeah. Like it's pretty beautiful. Yeah. To see.
Yeah. And it's what I see with you is that it's like these really wonderful talents and skills, and the way that you show up in the world. There's so many great things about it. And what I see is that you're able to give so much more and show yourself what you can do because of this, that it's like a flower blossoming, and it keeps blossoming more and more.
Yes. Yeah. Because I had all those skills before, but I was living in this fear. So I really couldn't blossom in that fear, because I often like self-model myself, because I did all of this, but I was a nervous wreck the entire time. Yeah. Now I have the freedom to actually do it and feel like it's real.
So what you're showing us here is you used to be, because you were in so much fear, when any of us is in a lot of fear, we're going to be wanting to keep ourselves safe and protect ourselves, right? And different people respond to different levels of fear, but your general tendency was that you had that fear reaction. And because that was happening, you couldn't get to a place of possibility because you were in defensive survival mode a lot. And you would create situations that made that, they just, expanded that, it magnified it more and more and more. Mm-hmm. And so with what you've learned here, it's helped you settle that down because a lot of it wasn't real. You created the fear, right? And the defensiveness in your imagination and in the way you were reacting to life. And now that that's not happening anymore, you are freed up to be about possibility and create opportunities and experiences and all of that.
Yeah. And some of this is an energetic thing where you're giving off that energy where before I wasn't getting the same response from the outside world. And now, one of my biggest growths as well is I always have been a really good public speaker. I've always been able to put it on and get it together. Yeah. But now I truly can step into it. And I had an example a couple of weeks ago as I went to the Burlington Chamber of Commerce and I stood at the podium. And Robbie, I would have never done that the first time I went to the breakfast. Never. Yeah. So I went up on the podium and, I've spoken in front of groups before and I actually felt confident. I had the butterflies, but like you say, we have them in formation and I had an outcome.
Yeah.
And I had those jot notes of what I wanted to say. And even though I had rehearsed them and didn't need to reflect back to them, I knew what I was talking about. Mm-hmm. And I knew the message I wanted to get across. And I got 15 clients just from that.
Yeah. Yeah. So it was very authentic and you weren't doing it to get attention. Like before in the past, when you were good at public speaking or you enjoyed it because you wanted attention. Mm-hmm. And that was your way of getting it. But that also put you in a situation of being worried about being judged.
Yes.
And now that you are more outcome focused and you're focused on where you're going and the message and you'd let go of that need to be liked, that you're freed up to connect in a much more profound way with people.
Yeah. Yeah. And the visual that's coming to me is I've gotten myself out of the way. Mm-hmm. I've pushed myself over. I'm still here, but I'm observing now.
Yeah.
And it has nothing to do with me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's much more freeing and way safer. I feel way better mm-hmm. operating this way. And I'm actually getting where I want to be.
Yeah.
Which is most important.
I see that. Yeah. Awesome. Share with us a little bit about how this has improved your marriage.
Yeah. Yeah. So I remember when I first met my husband, like I said, we're very different. And I remember meeting his friends and his friends saying to me, wow, he's really nice to you. And I was like, what, is he not normally nice to everyone? But we were kind of in this show for each other. So he didn't know I was an emotional roller coaster and I didn't know he was quite harsh with his words. Mm-hmm. So when we got married and had kids, your true authentic self comes out a little bit more, or your patterns come a little bit more on the table.
Yeah, you can't hide anything.
No.
Wait.
Exactly. You know a lot about them.
Enough sleep deprivation, all bets are off.
Everything's on the table. Yes, exactly. So and that's where I really was getting really frustrated and not to say that his words were the ones he truly means this in a beautiful way. And he's very honest and direct, but I was beating the crap out of myself based on that. Oh, that's exciting.
Zoom is celebrating with you.
Amazing.
And you get a thumbs up too.
So in that place, I was running from fear. I was trying to distract myself. That's where I was binge eating by myself on the couch at the end of the night. I was in this deserving place where when I had a break or had some time to myself, I'd watch a show and binge eat. It was a really, really lonely time in my marriage. And that's when I reached out for hypnosis, when I truly was in that pain of the problem. And now it's funny. I would describe it as my husband, we're still very different people, which is awesome because we're the yin and the yang to each other. And I truly see us as more of a whole and that we complement each other. Even when we're in social situations, he talks for a living. He's a commercial real estate agent and he doesn't want to talk by the end of the day. And sometimes I have more energy to talk. So we dance better. Our vibration is way better. We can problem solve and put a problem in the middle of us and tackle the problem. And something that's really helped that you've taught me is having a container for everyone's emotions in this space for everything. Where before I would just be like, nope, be quiet. Nope, my emotion is too big here. It takes up the whole container.
Right. Nobody's else is allowed to feel anything.
Yes.
Yeah. This is all that can happen right now.
Yeah. So me giving my husband that permission to have space for his emotion and space for what he wants too. Because realistically, I'm not going to agree with everything, and that's okay.
Yeah.
But having that space, we can focus on where we want to be and what we actually want to do and what makes us happy. So we have way more fun than we used to. And you know, sometimes we go for dinner or go for a walk and check in to see how things are going. And it's really important, just like this, where we're checking in and I'm giving myself that like, wow, you've done a great job. That's what I do in my marriage now too. We have these checkpoints and we're like, okay, so how are things going?
Yeah.
And it's really awesome and beautiful to see how far we've come and how much our jive is better.
Yeah, that's awesome. And what you're describing is a very natural thing that happens to just about every couple, where when you first meet and fall in love, you're in this early kind of passionate phase and everybody's on their best behavior. And so the other person doesn't really see you, but we tend to be attracted to people for subconscious reasons. So usually the person we pick also has this huge ability to push whatever our buttons are. Yes. So once you had the kids and you were sleep deprived and the pressure was on, right? All the buttons were pushed on both ends. And so the key to developing a really beautiful long-term relationship is to be able to grow through those buttons, because sometimes what happens is their buttons get pushed and then they go into fight or flight or freeze or fawn, and the whole relationship falls apart because they're not really authentically with the person. They're caught up in blaming or distracting or something along the way, so that they're not really engaging directly with the person. And then people grow apart, or there's so much anger that and resentment that they can't connect anymore. But this is really often a very natural part of a relationship. And if we see it that way and we know we need to grow through it, then it changes things.
Yeah. And it's great that you say that, because I see so many moms on like Facebook groups reaching out saying like, you know, their marriage is not where they want it to be. And just knowing that it is a natural thing and there is options.
Yeah.
There's so many modalities. There's so many options nowadays. We're really lucky.
Yes. Yeah. You have to be willing to seek it out. Is the key.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Great. All right. Well, Kristyn, I think that you shared so many important things for people. I think there'll be a lot of insights people will take away from this. So I'm hoping this inspires people to see where you might have some blind spots or need some feedback and accountability. And if that's true, I would strongly recommend you seek it out somehow. If you want more help and feedback, Kristyn, you can share your info. So go ahead.
Yeah. It's West End Hypnosis. So I'm the director of West End Hypnosis, and it's info@westendhypnosis.ca, or you can give me a shout at 416-666-1457.
Yeah. And Kristyn sees clients one-on-one for hypnosis to make these types of changes. Here we do a lot of group experiences, and the one-on-one, you get a really wonderful customized program that's just for you. When we do a group experience, you get that, and you also get to learn from a lot of the other people in the class. It gives you a lot of insight into other people and dynamics. And sometimes when we see something in somebody else, we start to notice it in ourselves. So, people come for personal growth. They come for professional growth, like growing businesses, as we talked about today. So if you want to learn more, you can get in touch with Kristyn, or you can contact me at hypnosistrainingcanada.com or mindlinkconsulting.com.